All right, this lesson is for Art 2. We're going to start with our warm-up. So what we're going to do is we're going to write down what art elements or principles of design that we see within the artwork. Today we are looking at artwork from Edgar Degas, was a French impressionist who rejected this term and called himself a realist. He was a painter who is known for subject of dance. He has displayed his mastery of movement within his artwork. We can also see color. We see a lot of our primary and secondary colors. We see yellow, we see red, and then we do have a little bit of blue with our primary colors. Our secondary colors that we can see is our green and a little bit of orange. We also have our shape. People, we are organic in shape, and then we do have a little bit of geometric shape of the chair and then parts of the structure of the building in the background. We can also see a little bit of pattern within parts of the set design of the stage. These are some examples to give you ideas. This project is called thermal artwork. We're going to review the art element of space. Space refers to the distance between the area around and within shapes, forms, colors, and lines. You can create space with distance to show background, which is farthest from the viewer, middle ground, which is in the middle, and foreground, which is closest to the viewer. Positive space is the space that takes up, the subject takes up. The negative space is void of the subject. This is an example of space. We can see overlap, shading, placement, size, value and focus, and linear perspective. Next, we're going to review the art principle of movement. Movement refers to the path our eye follows when we look at a work of art. The purpose is to create unity in the artwork with eye travel. This can be achieved by using repetition, rhythm, action. Examples are physical movement, juxtaposition, subject in a freeze frame, and moving the viewer's eye. Here is an example of movement for review. Materials needed for this project are pencil, drawing paper, color pencils or gel pens, reference photo to help with color placement. Directions that we're going to follow to complete this project are to choose an animal, insect, or reptile. Remember, always draw your own subject if you can take your own picture. Draw your subject in motion. Draw the background of the environment using an entire picture plane. Look at thermal photos of body heat colors to help with color choices. Color in your artwork, animal and environment. And here are some examples of what I'm looking for this project. Things to think about while creating your project: orientation of the drawing paper, maybe it's landscape or portrait. Subject must be in motion. Color choice of subject and environment. Look over thermal images to help you out. Color combinations can be a mix of cool and warm. Think of pink, purple, yellow, and orange colors. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the thermal art demo. So once again, you need to think about choosing your subject. When it comes to the subject, I always do recommend anybody to really kind of take their own pictures. I took this picture a couple of years ago at one of the aquariums in Corpus Christi. So it's always good to use your own images so you don't plagiarize anything online. So once you have your subject chosen, think about the orientation of your paper. So you could either have your orientation being portrait style just like this, or you could actually turn it what we call landscape style, which is this horizontal view right here. But since I am going to be doing this bird, I want to make sure that just the orientation of the bird, since it is more vertical, I'm going to go ahead and have my drawing paper for my flamingo be vertical. So once again, think about our subject. We also want to make sure that our picture has our subject in motion. We could actually see a lot of the water ripples, so we can see that our animal is in motion. So once again, whenever we start off drawing, we do want to think about terms of shapes. as we get started with our subject. And I'm just going to add in just basic shapes. And as you can see, I'm just really drawing lightly. And what I always recommend is draw light. I know you guys have heard it countless times until you get it right, which is completely true. So I'm just going, kind of doing the basic shape of the area, really placing everything that I see on my photo that I have taken myself to have the whole entire picture plane taken up by my subject, which is my flamingo. And as I add in, I can actually zoom into my photo that I actually have a lot more detail to add in a lot of those nice little details, but really quickly, so we just know our little placement. As I work down, looking at the texture of our feathers, I'm just going to add that in once again, because this is just, we're drawing light. And then once we have our final lines, we can actually go in and add our detail a little bit darker to make sure we have the proper proportion. And as I keep on looking back at my picture and my drawing, I'm looking at the proportion. And so as we draw lighter, we can actually look and see maybe something is a little off. That's why we're drawing light, and go in and fix any little imperfections. But you know what? I like to work with those imperfections because it makes our art a little bit more interesting. So once you have your subject drawn, think about the background, because you just don't want your subject floating in space. So as I can see with my own photograph, that there is a rock in the background. So I'm going to just put the general placement of the rock. And once again, we're thinking about the whole entire picture plane. We want to use everything from the very top to the bottom to fill up that space. And once again, just adding a little bit of detail of where I am going to incorporate later with the texture. So down here with the legs, once again, I'm looking at the proportion. Since I'm drawing light, I'm going to fix any little imperfections. And I keep on going back and forth from my photo to my drawing. And then now I'm going to incorporate those little water ripples to have that motion of movement within the water from my photo. And right here, we can actually see a little bit of a rough sketch. And then up here for part of the environment, I'm going to add a little bit of, looks like those little bamboo type trees. I'm going to add maybe a little bit of the leaves so I know exactly where my placement is, because like I said, we want to make sure we use an entire span of the picture plane to fill up our image, because once again, we do not want our subject floating in space. So now that I have my placement, what you're going to do is go back in and make your subject darker and add in that detail. So now going in, I'm going to refine my sketch. And just go back in, refine your sketch, and like we talked about with the directions, once you refine your sketch, think about your colors. So looking at the regular color of a flamingo, it's very sort of warm colors. I might kind of do the opposite, because looking at different thermal imaging, I might have him be maybe purple and pinks, and then my background be really dark blues and maybe some blacks to have that contrast. All right, well, this is our start for our thermal imaging picture.